we're exploring a lot of different things, Islam, the response to some of the criticism that has existed in Philly Magazine, but it's actually bigger than that, because the criticism has, or the discussion has been on a national level. You take it to President Obama, and the sheer mention of the fact that it was not the case, but even if it was, that people felt that if he in fact was Muslim, then he would have somehow been disqualified from being out there. I guess my question becomes, how do you counter what's so clearly ignorance? I mean, anybody who has any sort of understanding, I mean, people know that, I hope, the religion is not out there and endorsing this behavior. The belief system is not out there endorsing the behavior. I hope we know that. But people are still running with it. Is it even possible to launch the kind of information campaign that it would take to counter what is so clearly false?
Right. Well, the first thing that would have to be done is we have to understand that our Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, that he educated us in the ways of calling people and propagating our religion properly. And that begins with what we would almost consider inviting people to the principles of Islam and its fundamentals. The first thing that we do is that we try to establish for the people the true understanding of Islam. And we have written a number of works and books that have refuted these accusations. After 9/11, there was one of the arguments was that, you know, why isn't the Muslim community out there? Why aren't they speaking out against these matters? And I would submit that the old saying is true, that absence of knowledge does not necessitate knowledge of something's absence. The fact that a person may not have, these things may not have reached them does not necessitate that there's not people out speaking against these matters. I myself, we penned a book in defense of Islam when we spoke out against terrorism. We spoke out against these people who do these actions. We mentioned what Islam's position was with regards to the likes of bin Laden and other than them. There was another book that was written by an associate of mine called The Wahhabi Myth, and he also spoke out against terrorism and the likes of those matters. And we actually had a media day here in Philadelphia, and we had invited out the media, and we prepared food and the likes of those matters, and honestly no one showed up from the media. And I think it just goes back to the old argument, if it bleeds, it leads. And I think that it's not, especially with the economy now and the way the newspapers and the magazines are falling, by the day, Philadelphia Inquirer and the Daily News having to file bankruptcy, and the likes of these matters, that right now I think the concern is the sale of newspapers and the sale of magazines, which does not benefit, again, it does not benefit society. But to go back to your original question, it begins with us in a grassroots effort and to use all of the means of media and technology at our disposal to get out here and to be diligent and to work to call to what Islam calls to from the proper understanding of our religion, to be as diligent in spreading these matters and writing works and doing articles. And what we did with this recording that we gave you today, the CD, we did the recording and then we've produced it and we've been giving it out for free throughout the city, and we've been sending it to different places free of charge. We're not charging anyone because we want this to be a clarification in this matter what is taking place. So we'll use all the means at our disposal, whether it be, as we said, the technology, the media, grassroots efforts, to get the message out there that Islam is free from these actions and these activities of these individuals.
And so that we're clear, we have in the studio approximately 200 copies of those CDs. So those individuals that would like a copy of the CD that gives you Islam's stance on violence and crime.
I just want to make one quick response. This CD, this recording, if you listen to it, what we're trying to remind the people of is that Islam goes back to text and sources. It's not about people's opinion. It's about the text and sources. Firstly, we believe in revelation. We believe that our book was revealed to our Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, over 1,400 years ago. And that the Prophet's traditions also, his actions and things that he said and did, are also a part of that revelation, that he was instructed on how to teach the people how to worship the Creator properly. So therefore, whenever we have these kinds of discussions, and I know that people have their opinions, but we have been instructed in our holy book, the Quran, and if you differ in anything, refer it back to Allah and back to His Messenger. That is the instructions in the Quran, in our holy book, that if you differ in anything, refer it back to Allah and back to His Messenger. So on the CD, what you'll find are the statements from the Quran and from the statements from the Prophet's prophetic traditions, and also the understanding of his companions who lived with him during that period. So this is just something I just wanted to mention, so that people, because people do have their own interpretations and understandings and opinions, but we have been instructed and commanded to refer all of that back to those sources, those texts, and that has greater wisdom and greater understanding of the religion than we could ever bring in our opinions.
Folks, we need to take a quick break. It's 8:21. You're in the Pulse magazine. Today, a bit of a special edition. There was an article, but the article in Philadelphia Magazine is just kind of the tip of the iceberg. It is what sparked this ongoing discussion. There is discussion, obviously, that you've all heard, some of the issues that people have, unjustified issues with Islam, but we're exploring that a little bit today. Abu Hassan Malik. And 200 copies of the disc that they're talking about will be available here at the station. All you have to do is come up, folks. Come up to the station, and you can have a copy. And the professor.
Abu.
Stop saying his name.
I want to hear you say Abu again.
Abu Hassan.
No, Abu Hassan. Abu Hassan Malik.
Abu Hassan Malik. Professor. You're professor today. During the last break, we were talking about, Jamal actually asked whether or not there is an added responsibility for you to kind of be the standard bearers because people are looking so closely at Islam or at people who are misrepresenting Islam. Is there an added responsibility for those who are doing it the right way or have the information to kind of live that life very publicly so that people can see it?
Well, as we had mentioned or we talked about, there is a responsibility for us to clarify what Islam is and what Islam is not. I know a lot of people, as we just talked about, have the attitude, well, why do Muslims have to free themselves from these matters? Why do they clarify these matters? You guys aren't guilty of these things, so why should you have to stand up and say these things? Well, it was our Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, as I mentioned before. We take our learning from his example. We try to walk in the same fashion as our Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. And as I had mentioned, there was an incident that one of his companions, Khalid bin Walid, may Allah be pleased with him, that he actually had went out on an expedition and he had killed some non-Muslims unjustly. When the word got back to our Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, he stood before the masses of his companions and he said to them, I free myself from those actions of Khalid bin Walid. So the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, was from the first to free himself from wrongdoing and wrong actions, so as to purify and understand that the religion is free from the likes of those matters. I just want to mention what one of our scholars, one of our teachers, Sheikh Ubayd al-Jabari, when Officer Lizvinsky was murdered, we called the scholar for some advice on what to do and how to approach this situation here in our city in Philadelphia. And I just want to read briefly just some of the advice because it ties into what you just asked me. And the Sheikh, he said, my advice to the Muslims in America and Europe, I advise them to display all of the good and beautiful qualities of this religion because these qualities are praiseworthy and lofty. They spread safety and security in the land and establish justice among all people, whether they practice Islam or whether they practice other than Islam, from the Christians and Jews. And I say to you, indeed your neighbors from the non-Muslims are observing your actions and your statements. So if they see from you that you keep your word and refrain from harming people and their honor, and you honor your contracts, and you are truthful people, and you safeguard people's lives, property, and honor, and stay away from oppression, then they, the non-Muslims, will feel at ease with you and be comfortable around you. And this is from the means of inviting to the way of Allah. And how many non-Muslims accepted Islam from what they witnessed of noble character and good manners of the Muslims? And this is the last part. So spread the noble qualities of your religion, and if certain things take place from individuals amongst the Muslims of crime and transgression upon your neighbors from the non-Muslims, from acts of murder and armed robbery or other than that, then announce that you are free from them and their actions. For indeed these individuals, these criminals, even if they ascribe to Islam, indeed Islam is free from their actions, and those Muslims who practice Islam correctly are also free from what they do of savage